Hello everybody, welcome back to more A Link to the Past. In this episode, I'm going to be doing the Dark Palace. It's the first palace here in the Dark World, obviously. And it's actually a really cool dungeon. It's not that big, but there are little secret passageways here or there, and warp points, and you go up, you go down, you go around. It can be quite confusing if you don't know what you're doing. These little statues here, they're called Medusa, which is kind of an interesting name for a Zelda enemy. And of course, with my magic shield that I got at the waterfall, I am able to block those attacks, thankfully. Yeah, lots of switches to press and doors to open. So on the surface, the dungeon looks pretty simple, but in fact, if it's the first time you're going through it, it can be a little bit complex. Not for me though, I've played this game so many times, I know how it goes. These anti-fairies, man, they're so wacky. Especially if you don't have the fairy dust. But I'm not going to deal with them. I'm just going to go right by them and face off against these jellyfish-looking Baris. That's what they're called. B-A-R-Is. And these are Goria. They mimic your movement in the opposites. That is to say, when I move forward, they move down. And so on and so forth. When I turn left, they turn right. And you have to kind of manipulate their movements in order to deal with them, as I am doing here. Looks simple on the surface, but it's a little awkward to get used to, honestly. This room always reminds me of the room leading up to the boss in the water temple in Ocarina of Time. I don't know why. Map is fairly useless in this game, but, you know. Sometimes it's helpful, especially for finding hidden rooms, if you don't know the dungeon very well. So this left side has a key, and over here on the right is actually a fairy fountain. Nothing important here, just some fairies if you're low on hearts. But it's a 100% playthrough, you guys know I like to show everything. So here it is, secret fairy room. You're welcome. And I like to use the mirror just to get back to the beginning instead of backtracking. Sometimes it's that much more efficient, especially these huge multi-level dungeons like this. You don't want to backtrack. Nobody wants to backtrack. Come on. Alright, more Medusa here. Nobody panic. That's intentional. I meant to fall down here. These little turtle-looking things are called terrapins. I can't deal with them just yet, but I will be able to soon. So you may have noticed that we're really kind of just going back and forth and going to the same rooms over and over again. Kind of reiterating my point that on the surface this dungeon is pretty simple, but the more you look at it, the more little hidden things it has. Like this hole on the ground that you blow open with bombs. And you see, it basically takes me to rooms I've been to previously, just a level above. Now with the big key, I have access to most of the dungeon. I still need the dungeon item in order to access some of the final regions of it. But not to worry, we're almost there. It does give off that vibe that we're doing the same thing over and over again here, but each time we go through it, we access a little bit of a different spot. And this is really unique here. What other Zelda platformer like this can you jump like that? I can't think of one that comes to my mind. And I said platformer, but this is not a platformer. I don't know why I said that. I'm gonna try to make my way to that big chest you saw on my left. To grab the dungeon item, but first I have to get through this maze. There are a few of these in this game, and they're always a little bit frustrating because they're in the dark, so you have to kind of make your way through them. In general, you'll have a few items in them, and then the way out, so you want to make sure you don't miss anything. For example, this key. You don't want to miss that. Gonna need that for later. And here is the dungeon item. This is the magic hammer, and there's a lot of different cool things that you can do with it, and I'm going to be exhibiting a lot of that here pretty soon. First of all, I'll be able to deal with those terrapins that we came across earlier, be able to defeat them, and then I can always use the hammer to get rid of some other enemies called moles to access different areas of the game. That's going to come into play here in just a few moments. Before I grab that chest and continue along my way, I'm going to go down here. My favorite room in the whole dungeon. Why? Because look at all these rupees. Yes! I love rupees. Just got to be careful with the anti-fairies. They're so aggressive. And just when you think it's over, you go on the other side, and bam! More rupees. Look at all these. I'm rich. Link can retire. He doesn't need to save Hyrule. He can go get a little beach cabin and live a comfortable life. But that will be very anticlimactic for this playthrough, so we're going to keep going. Let's keep going through the dungeon. Let me grab the compass here. Kind of get this fairly late on in this dungeon, so it's not very useful at this point. But let me grab this. And then, actually, I can use the Pegasus Boots to go through this area. Just gotta time it pretty well. And again, this weird little ledge jump. Before I jump, I am going to freeze all these enemies because they're waiting for me right on the other side. So, thank you, Ether. Nice. Just going to get rid of all of them because I feel like it. And then I can use these skulls to hit some of the switches here. You can always use the boomerang or an arrow or something like that. So here we have a classic Zelda puzzle where you gotta move the statue onto a switch, because if I were to step on that switch, it would just deactivate as soon as I step off of it. But obviously if I leave the weight of the statue there, then the door remains open for me to come in here and deal with some more of these Goria. Nice. Could have used an arrow on that switch, honestly, but too late for that. Just gonna open up another side here in this room so that I can continue and explore some other areas. Alright. Can finally head down here. And these are the moles I was talking about. They look like just obstacles, but they're actually enemies. And I can use my hammer on them. And as you can see, it also works on the terrapins. It flips them over if you hit the ground near them. And then you can finish them off either with a hammer again or with your sword. So here, for example, you flip them over and then you can smack them 2 times with the sword. Or actually, if you smack them in their belly 1 time with a hammer, that works too. A little bit more efficient even. Nice, red rupee. The only thing with a hammer is that if you miss them when they're on their back, you just flip them back over, so you gotta get pretty close to smack them in the belly. And this is that same secret rupee room, as you can see to the left and right. That's where all those rupees were. Yes, my favorite room in the game. And now it's the boss already, believe it or not. This is the Hellmuth King, and he's wearing this giant iron mask. And I have to break it slowly by smacking it with my hammer. You can see it's starting to shatter there on the left. He has a few main attacks. Number 1, he moves, and he can ram into you. Then he has this little fireball, and if you know the pattern of how they explode, it's pretty easy to avoid. And then finally, he uses his tail at an arc to try and smack you a little bit later on here in the fight. Overall, pretty easy if you're used to the movements. Once you break the mask, just gotta smack his green emerald thing on his forehead with a sword. It's during this phase of the fight that he uses the tail, but it goes at an arc, so just be mindful of that. So overall, not too bad, pretty easy. And here I have saved the first maiden out of the 7. Pretty exciting stuff. Link, because of you, I've escaped from the clutches of the evil monsters. Thank you. This world was once the Golden Land where the Triforce was hidden. But because Ganon, the leader of the thieves, wished it, this world was transformed. I'm sure he's intending to conquer even our light world after building his power here. His hope is to use us maidens and the power of the sages that has been passed on to us as the key to open a larger gate between the worlds near Hyrule Castle. But the gate is not completely open yet. There is still time. Together, we 7 maidens can break the barrier that protects Ganon's hiding place. I can tell you where the other girls are held. I believe you will destroy Ganon. I will return to my original form at that time. Do you understand? May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce. Alright, so thanks for watching and see you on the next episode.